I'm Alex. I'm 34 years old, and if I'm being honest, I've never really felt like I belonged in my family. It's not some teenage angst thing that I carried into adulthood. It's deeper than that. Like no matter how much I achieved, how hard I tried to be seen or respected, it never quite registered. I was always the quiet one, the late bloomer, the one who didn't follow the traditional path. While my sister got married at 27 and was pregnant with her second kid by 30, I was still figuring things out, switching careers, renting a modest apartment, and trying to rebuild after a rough breakup that none of them had asked about. Not even once. The baby shower was at my parents' house, the same two-story place I grew up in, where the floorboards still creaked in the same places and the kitchen clock had been broken for so long that it had become part of the decor. I hadn't wanted to go. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes outside, engine off, watching balloons flap in the breeze on the mailbox, wondering what version of me they were waiting to judge this time. But I went in. Of course I did. Because even after everything, a part of me still hoped it would be different. The living room was packed. Pink streamers, diaper-shaped party favors, the smell of lemon bars and pot roast. My sister, Camilla, was glowing, not just in the pregnant, radiant sense, but in that self-satisfied way she always wore when she knew the attention was all on her. I handed her my gift, a neatly wrapped baby monitor set, in a plain white envelope. Her eyes skimmed over it, clearly unimpressed. She handed it off to my cousin without even a thank you. The comments started early. My mom was the first to strike. We were in the kitchen, filling our plates. She picked up a deviled egg, glanced at me, and said with a smirk, "Let's hope you never have kids. You can barely take care of yourself." She said it lightly, like a joke, but didn't even wait for a laugh before walking away. I stood there, frozen, holding my plate like a shield, unsure if I should say something or just swallow it down like usual. Then came my aunt, Cheryl, always the one to put things nicely, which somehow made it worse. She leaned over while I was setting down a tray of cookies I'd brought, her voice low, but not nearly low enough. "Still no partner? Poor thing," she murmured, then tacked on. "But don't worry, not everyone's meant to be a parent." I didn't respond. I just walked away again, mouth dry, ears hot. I found a quiet spot near the back patio, next to a half-dead houseplant and a table stacked with unopened gifts. For a few minutes, I just watched people mill around, cousins chatting about renovations and real estate, uncles talking about their retirement accounts, the younger generation glued to their phones. No one came over. Not to say hello, not to ask how I was doing. I was there, but invisible, like furniture. Then Camilla's husband, Brent, tapped a glass and made some loud, cringy joke about starting the unwrapping, while everyone still had energy. Camilla sat in the center of the living room like a queen, throne and all. People gathered. Phones came out. I stayed back. Gift after gift was opened. Matching onesies, diaper subscriptions, handmade blankets from grandma. The baby monitor was tossed aside with barely a glance, and when the white envelope came up, Camilla smiled a little wider. "Oh, mysterious," she said. She tore it open with exaggerated curiosity, held up the check, and gasped. 100,000? She said, her voice climbing 2 octaves. "Alex, you gave us a check for $100,000. The room quieted. All eyes turned to me. A few people even clapped. Someone said, "Well, guess you've been doing something right after all," and the laughter bubbled up like champagne foam. My mom blinked, then gave a strained, polite smile. "That's unexpected," she said, and nothing more. I should have felt proud, triumphant, but instead, I just felt cold. Because the truth was, that check wasn't really meant for Camilla. It wasn't even meant to be flashy. It was the last of a bonus I'd gotten from a tech deal that had finally paid off after 5 years of insane work. I'd been saving it for something meaningful, something to finally earn their respect, their warmth, maybe, stupidly, their love. But as I stood there, staring at their smug, surprised faces, the clapping died down and someone, I think it was my cousin Jared, called out, "At least pretend to be useful and take the trash out, would you?" More laughter, even from my mom. She laughed, then waved her hand like it was no big deal. "Oh, stop it," she said, though she didn't look at me. She looked past me, like I wasn't even there. Something in me cracked. I didn't say a word. I stepped forward, walked to the center of the room, past the food, past the awkward stares, past the camera still filming. I reached for the envelope. Camilla instinctively held it closer to her chest, but then, sensing no threat, handed it to me with a small frown, like she was annoyed I was ruining the moment. I opened it slowly, pulled out the check, held it up so everyone could see, and tore it in half. Then I tore it again, and again, until the pieces were falling like confetti. The silence was instant. Heavy. You could hear someone drop a fork onto a plate in the kitchen. No one moved. No one laughed now. Not even Jared. I looked at Camilla. Her mouth hung open. I looked at my mom. Her face had frozen mid-expression, some mixture of shock and outrage she hadn't figured out how to land on yet. I didn't explain myself. Not one word. I turned, walked toward the front door, and stepped out into the cool afternoon air. My shoes crunched against the gravel as I made my way to the car. I could still feel every pair of eyes on my back, still hear the silence I'd left behind. Not a single person had called after me. Not yet, at least. I slid into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, heart pounding not from fear, but from the kind of clarity that only comes when a line has finally been crossed. A line that I had allowed them to dance over for far too long. I stared at the house through the windshield. The place I'd grown up in. The place where I was made to feel like a permanent disappointment. Where every achievement was either ignored or twisted into something selfish or insufficient. Where I was expected to give and give and give, and be grateful just for being tolerated. I didn't start the car. Not yet. Because I knew what was coming. Sure enough, less than a minute later, the front door opened. It was Camilla. Her expression was still stunned, but now tinged with anger, like I'd just ruined her wedding day. She stood there on the porch, looking around like she expected someone to be filming her righteous outrage for social media. Then she spotted me in the car and stormed down the front steps, her arms crossing over her chest in that defensive way she always used when she couldn't find the words to justify herself. She marched up to the window and tapped once. I rolled it down halfway. "You're seriously insane," she snapped, not even trying to keep her voice down. "You think this makes you some kind of a martyr? You embarrassed me. In front of everyone." I didn't flinch. I didn't do anything but reclaim what was mine. That was a gift. No, that was a bribe for decency. And you all failed the test before I even handed it over. Camilla scoffed. "Oh, come on. You're so sensitive. We were joking. That's just how the family talks." "You weren't joking," I said quietly. "You've never been joking." That gave her pause. For half a second, something flickered across her face, like maybe she understood that this wasn't about a check, or a party, or a single comment. But then she recovered, rolled her eyes. "Mom's pissed, you know." "Good," I said, and started the car. Camilla took a step back, clearly expecting me to explain more. But I didn't know her that. I didn't know any of them anything. As I pulled away, I saw my aunt standing in the doorway with her arms folded, shaking her head like I was the problem. Behind her, Jared had already gone back to the food table. Business as usual, of course. But I wasn't driving home. I was driving to the bank. Because that check wasn't the only thing I'd brought with me to the baby shower. I'd brought another envelope. One I had kept in the glove box, just in case. And now, as I stopped at a red light and reached for it, I felt the corner of my mouth twitch upward for the first time that day. The second envelope didn't hold a check. It held a stack of notarized documents. Legal ones. Quiet ones. See, a few years ago, my grandfather, the only family member who ever truly believed in me, left me the executor rights to a trust fund. A large one. One that my parents and Camilla didn't even realize was connected to them, because it had been set up decades ago under a different name. Granddad's little secret. He used to call it insurance. I didn't touch it for years. I let them think he left me a couple old tools from the garage and a handwritten note, which he did. But the real inheritance had strings that I now legally controlled. And after the way today went, I was ready to pull them. So I parked the car, walked into the bank, and handed over the forms to my advisor. "Is this final?" she asked, double-checking the signatures. "Yes," I said. "Effective immediately. Freeze the accounts. Stop all future payments. Cancel any pending transfers to the names listed on page 3. Her eyes flicked over the names. "Your family. Let's just call them former beneficiaries," I said. She didn't ask any more questions. That's what I liked about her. Efficient. Discreet. When I got back into the car, my phone had already started buzzing. First from Mom. Then Camilla. Then Dad. Surprisingly, though his message was just 3 words, What did you do? I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I drove downtown and checked into a hotel. Not because I didn't have a place to go, but because I needed peace. I needed silence that didn't feel like judgment. I needed a long bath, a room where I wasn't being watched or evaluated, and a moment to decide what came next. And as I sat on the bed with my phone still lighting up every few seconds, I realized something. For the first time in years, I had the power. Not because of money, not even because of the trust, but because I finally stopped asking to be loved by people who only knew how to control. I put the phone on silent, set it face down, and lay back on the pillow. Tomorrow, I'd respond. Tomorrow, I'd let them know exactly what they'd lost. But for tonight, I just closed my eyes and listened to nothing but the hum of the air conditioner. They'd wanted to see if I could be useful. Now they'd see just how useful I'd been all along. And they wouldn't like it. The next morning, I woke up to the pale gray light filtering in through the curtains, the kind that makes everything look softer than it is. I sat up slowly, still in that quiet mental space where nothing had quite caught up with me yet. But then I grabbed my phone, flipped it over, and the weight of it all came rushing back. 37 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and a string of texts that got increasingly unhinged as the night wore on. The earliest ones were from my mom. "Alex, call me when you get a chance." Then, was that really necessary? By midnight, it had turned into, "You have no idea how much stress you've caused. This was your sister's special day. Camilla's were shorter, but sharper. You're disgusting. You made me look like a fool. Fix this." Brent, surprisingly, sent just one message. "Look, man, I get it, but can we talk?" That one made me pause. I never had a real problem with Brent. He always struck me as more of an accessory than an active participant in the family drama. But then again, he never stepped in either. Never told Camilla to tone it down. Never stood up when I was being humiliated, even in front of him. I deleted the message. Then I opened my laptop. I had made up my mind sometime around 3 a.m., lying in the dark hotel room with only the soft mechanical buzz of the mini fridge and the distant hum of the elevator down the hall. This wasn't just about the baby shower. It was about everything. Years of being spoken down to, dismissed, ignored, treated like I was some wandering failure who hadn't grown up the way they wanted. All while I quietly built a life that they never cared to understand. It was time to stop playing by their rules. I logged into the trust account dashboard. It wasn't just the family fund my grandfather left. Over the past few years, I'd grown the investments, managed distributions, and even created separate portfolios to support charitable causes in his name, which, of course, no one in the family knew about. To them, Granddad was just the grumpy old man who liked puzzles and coffee that tasted like burnt leaves. But to me, he was the only one who ever looked me in the eye and meant it when he said, "You're going to do things your way." And I'm proud of that. There were 3 beneficiaries still listed on one of the active accounts: my mom, Camilla, and Aunt Cheryl. All automatic payments. A monthly stipend for my mom, covering some of her personal expenses and retail therapy. A quarterly lump sum to Camilla, disguised as support for young mothers, set up long before she ever became one. And a yearly bonus to Cheryl, because my grandfather always said she helped care for him when he was sick. In reality, she stopped visiting him in his last year. I knew that. I had the logs, but I hadn't changed it until now. Click. Pause. Confirm removal. It was all done in less than a minute. I sat back in the chair, watching the screen refresh. The names vanished from the active list, and with it, so did every cent that had been flowing into their lives from this quiet, invisible source. They'd never bothered to ask where the extra money came from. They just assumed it was from the estate, or what was owed. And I had let them believe that, because I didn't care to correct them. Because for a long time, I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped giving. But now I wanted them to feel it, not out of spite, but because sometimes the only way to make people see you is to take away what they never appreciated in the first place. I crafted a message, not to Camilla, or Mom, or Cheryl, but to the extended family group chat that we all still technically belong to. The same one where they posted wedding photos, ultrasound images, and announcements about birthdays I wasn't invited to. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. Then I typed. Yesterday, I tore up a $100,000 check because I realized something. I've spent years giving to people who only know how to take. That ends now. If you're confused, you'll understand soon. If you're angry, ask yourself why. And if you're thinking about calling me, don't. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Until then, I suggest everyone checks their bank statements. Then I hit send. 5 minutes of silence. Then the typing bubbles started. One by one. Some from cousins who had nothing to do with the shower. One from Uncle James, who wrote, "What is going on?" And another from a distant second cousin. "Dude, you tore up a 100K check?" Camilla didn't reply in the group, but she texted me directly, moments later. "You petty selfish." I didn't read the rest. Instead, I blocked her. I blocked my mom too. And Aunt Cheryl. One by one. Not forever, but long enough for them to realize that silence wasn't weakness. It was power. I spent the next few hours calling the charities my grandfather used to support. We expanded their disbursements, doubled them in some cases. I allocated part of the frozen funds towards setting up a scholarship in his name, specifically for students who had been written off by their families. Because that's what I'd been. And now, finally, I wasn't. I was building something that mattered, not just for myself, but in his honor. Quietly, purposefully. I didn't know what would come next. But then, just as I was about to shut my laptop, my phone buzzed again. A new number. Not one I recognized. I stared at the screen, then picked up. A voice I hadn't heard in years said, "Hey, it's Dad. I think we need to talk." And just like that, a door I hadn't expected opened. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to walk through it. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, unsure whether I had read it right. Dad. The name didn't show up on my caller ID because I deleted his contact years ago, back when he left us. Or, more accurately, back when he stopped pretending to be part of the family. One day he just vanished. No fight, no dramatic scene, just gone. Mom always said it was because he couldn't handle responsibility. Camilla, already Dad's favorite, said it was because I was such a disappointment, like he couldn't bear watching me flounder around while she rose through life like some shining star. I believed them for a while, but then I found the letters, stuffed in the back of the hall closet one summer while I was helping Mom reorganize. Unopened envelopes, all addressed to me in handwriting I hadn't seen since I was 10. Dozens of them. I never said a word, just took the box and went home. And that night, I read them all. Every apology, every update, every expression of love and guilt. He never stopped writing. Mom just never gave them to me. I hadn't heard from him since. Until now. I stared at the text. Reread it. "Hey, it's Dad. I think we need to talk." I typed one word back. "Okay." 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. It was awkward at first. Tentative. But something about hearing his voice after so many years, it cracked something open in me. He didn't ask what happened. He'd already heard. Apparently, one of my younger cousins had posted a play-by-play of the baby shower disaster in a group chat that somehow made its way to a Facebook post. From there, it spread like wildfire. He laughed softly. "I'm not saying you should have torn the check," he said, "but I can't lie. I'm a little proud." That made me laugh too. The first real laugh I'd had in days. We talked for over an hour. About what happened. About Mom. About the family, the old house, and how it had always felt like walking on glass. I told him about Granddad's trust, the years I spent managing it, the scholarship I was creating. He told me where he'd gone, why he left, how things fell apart between him and Mom long before I was old enough to notice. He didn't try to justify it. He just said, "I failed, but I never stopped thinking about you." We agreed to meet for lunch that weekend. It was strange, walking into the cafe and recognizing someone I hadn't seen since childhood. His hair was grayer, his frame smaller, but his eyes, those were the same. We hugged. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that was enough. A few days later, I posted an update to the family group chat. I kept it short. Some of you have reached out. I'm not interested in apologies that come with strings. But if you genuinely want to make things right, start by acknowledging how you've treated me. Not yesterday. For years. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. Mom didn't reply. Neither did Camilla. But I got a message from my younger cousin Emily, the only one who ever sat with me at holiday dinners when no one else had a seat for me. She wrote, "I'm sorry. I saw it all happen and I didn't say anything. I should have. If you ever want to talk, I'd love to catch up. You didn't deserve any of that." I told her I appreciated it. I did. A week later, my mom finally sent a message. Not a call. Not a visit. Just a single text. "I hope you're happy with the mess you made." That was it. No apology. No explanation. I didn't reply. Instead, I called the attorney I'd been working with for the trust. We had previously talked about converting part of it into a nonprofit foundation, not just for scholarships, but for mental health support, housing aid, and career training for young adults who had been emotionally or financially abandoned by their families. I'd been hesitant at first. Now I was ready. We named it the Atlas Initiative, after my grandfather, whose middle name was Atlas, and who always said, "Even when the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you still get to choose where you walk." The launch happened quietly. No press, no gala, just a soft rollout online and a few partner organizations. I funded the first year entirely on my own. Within a month, I had 15 applicants. By the end of the year, we'd helped over 70 young adults. Housing, counseling, mentorship, emergency grants. Real help, quiet help. And then came the email. It was from Camilla. No subject line, no greeting, just a wall of text. She was furious. Said I had humiliated her for no reason. That I took joy in destroying her baby's shower. That mom was still recovering from the emotional trauma. That the missing money had forced them to reconsider plans for the nursery, the lease, the baby's college fund. The nerve of her, acting like that check was owed to her. And then, at the very bottom, "You've always been jealous of me. Admit it. You never had what I had. And instead of finding your own way, you just ruined what I built." I didn't reply. I archived the email and created a folder called Delusions. I didn't need to fight her anymore. I had nothing to prove. Not to her. Not to Mom. Not to any of them. But I did send one more message that week. It was a handwritten letter. To my grandfather's old friend, Mr. Jennings, the quiet accountant who helped set up the original trust and once told me, "Your grandfather knew this day might come. That's why he gave you the keys." I wrote, "Thank you for believing in him and for helping him believe in me." The family didn't see it, but he did. And because of that, I do too now. A month later, I visited Granddad's grave. I hadn't been back since the funeral. I brought a single white rose and a folded piece of paper. I knelt beside the stone, placed the note beneath the rose, and whispered, "I did it." I finally walked away. Then I stood up and walked home, not to the old house, not to the memories, but to the life I had built, the life they never thought I could make. I still get messages sometimes from relatives trying to sneak their way back into my good graces. Some try to guilt me. Others just want money. A few, like Emily, are genuine. I've reconnected with her. We even had coffee recently and laughed about how Grandma's fruitcake could have been used as a lethal weapon. It felt good, real. And as for Dad, we've met for lunch every other Sunday since that first call. It's still a bit awkward sometimes. But he shows up. He listens. He never tries to explain away the past. He just tries to be there. And for me, that's enough. I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know this. When you stop begging to be seen and start walking away, you find the kind of peace that no approval can match. And sometimes, you find something even better than peace. You find yourself.